Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Let's Talk CFL podcast, episode number 641. I'm your host, Christopher Jones. And what are we going to do? We're going to talk some football, that CFL football, Canadian football, the big gridiron type, not that soccer shit. Okay, because we don't do soccer. We're going to be talking a little bit about soccer, although they don't call it soccer. They like to call it football. I don't know why they kick the ball more than what we do. So I don't know why actually gridiron football is called football because I don't know. And they get mad when you kick the ball, and they're trying to make it harder to kick the ball, and you got to put the goalpost down at the other end of the end zone. And yeah, no, you only kick the ball when you're shitty, right?
Yep.
If you're playing good football, you don't have to kick the
Apparently,
ball,
that's the idea of it.
right? I mean, seriously, like if you score a touchdown, if you're doing good, you go for a 2-point conversion, right? You make more points. So if you're kicking a field goal, that means you fucked up on your first down. If you're punting, that means you're really fucked up. So
You fucked up, but did good enough.
but yeah, that's a field goal. You fucked up, but you're good enough. Punt, fucked up, and you're no good. Okay, so yeah, it's you only kick the ball when you're in trouble. So I don't understand why we call it football, but I'm not going to argue and complain because it's football, and that's what we call it in North America, especially in Canada, where we are and we watch Canadian football. Okay, that's my rant. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about now. Okay, so we're going to go off. Willie's not going to come in tonight. I don't know what he is. He's having a pissy fit or something. I don't know. And Charles says he's a little late. But I got two guys on the podcast, and we're going to rock and roll with it. Michael Dennis, Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. Edmonton
Hello.
Elks fan. My friend, how are you?
I am doing really good, and I'm going to bash soccer a little bit tonight. In that Sunday, I went to the Portland Timbers game, and it was a beautiful sunny day. And I looked at that field, and I went, "We deserve to have a CFL football game in that stadium." I mean, that is just a beautiful stadium for football. And you guys are so blessed to have it. So it's going to be a good podcast tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. I'm trying to get my headphones going here so I can listen to you guys a little bit better, but I don't know what's going on with them.
Okay, Scott, what about you? Hello.
I'm doing pretty good. The snow's melting outside. The grass is starting to come through a little bit, and finally got some consistent plus temperature. So that starts to tell you. So I'm excited to do the first full season of what we did last year. So
the one question I have is your town really excited for this CFL season, being that you guys are the incumbent champions?
They always are, every year. Doesn't matter, champions, miss the playoffs, doesn't matter, we're always excited. We have nothing else. So football is the only thing we have. So
they're not going to work. Fine.
The next best thing we have is the WHL. So yeah, every year in Saskatchewan, you know when football season's coming because everyone starts talking about it. Everyone's walking through Costco. You got your Rider shirt on. People are saying, "Oh, you excited for the season?" Oh yeah.
Well, I would imagine it's going to be a fun. I think this is going to be it's going to be a great year from the standpoint. The Western Division is going to be absolutely loaded going into this season. And I don't think that there's going to be an easy game on the schedule for anybody in the West.
No, I mean, I would love to see more competition coming out from the East and them to start showing up a little bit, but because it's pretty bad when, first place team in the East doesn't have much better record than the last place team in the West. But, again, barring injuries, this is going to be a very entertaining West Division. The problem is the injuries are going to happen. We just don't know who.
The thing I've been thinking about our broadcast last week, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about Winnipeg. And if Collaros is able to perform up to his level and doesn't get hurt, I could make the case of why they would want to run that team back. They're going to be a pretty formidable team.
My question for the Winnipeg's part argument is, and then they may be a really good solid team this year. Will they be as dominant? No, because their dominance hasn't been there for quite some time. Could competing for second place, sure, if everyone's healthy. My question is, are they playing for? Are they playing for 1 year or are they playing for their future? So if they're
Mhm.
playing for their future, this isn't it. Most of those guys on that team is not their future. You can say the same thing about Saskatchewan, but they have next year's Grey Cup to look at. They're fighting to try to find a replacement first string quarterback. Do they have it? Do they not? We don't know. Winnipeg's had that time to right after they last year when they didn't get the in as soon as the playoffs were done, I think that they should have sat there and said we don't care, we're going young.
Mhm.
But they have no
Well,
replacement for Zach, so
I really thought that after they won the Grey Cup, or excuse me, after they got eliminated in the playoffs for the Grey
yeah.
Cup, I really thought Winnipeg was going to go for a complete rebuild. And I was actually surprised that their coach resigned. I thought for sure he was going to head to Toronto. But but then again, the way Toronto is, they are such a mess. They are such a mess. I can see why he said, I'm going back. I'm
Well,
going back home.
I mean, any mess can be cleaned up, right? Any mess can be. And like it's a matter of do you have the right people in place to I don't know that O'Shea wanted to clean that mess up. I don't know if once he probably heard what all they wanted him to do, he was probably sitting there going, I'm better off in Winnipeg. I got less duties there. Like Dinwiddie, for instance, going to Ottawa. He's coach, he's GM, he's offensive coordinator, he's all these things. And then turn around and said he'll actually have less to do than what he did in Toronto. Um, I think Toronto did the best thing that they could, bringing in who they did to clean that mess up. It's not a one man show. I think O'Shea could have probably definitely left a bit of a legacy going there. And if he was able to help turn that thing around. But I mean, Winnipeg's his home. That's where everything he turned that team around and everything like that. It's like I said, it comes down to why are they keeping the people around that they are? Are they trying to do a hard rebuild or are they trying to do a soft rebuild? Meaning, are they trying to do a couple players here and there?
Mhm.
But me, they're you're replacing pieces where you have no instructions. You're trying to put a puddle together and you don't know what it is. That's what they're doing with the whole quarterback thing. And like I said, Saskatchewan's in the same boat. Trevor Harris goes down, we're screwed. And like most teams, you're screwed because there's no quarterbacks in the league to just up and go in. Because it's very not often in the CFL where you throw somebody in. Davis Alexander, no one knew who the hell he was. He goes in, starts performing at a high level. Nathan Rourke comes in, no one really knows who he is. He comes in, starts performing at a high level. That's about it. There's no one else has really come in not knowing who they are. Like, for instance, Cody came in 2019, he started lighting it up. Nobody knew his tendencies. No one knew who he was as a quarterback. And just like every other quarterback, once you start learning their tendencies, what do they do? And you start seeing them on film, you start gathering information on them, you learn how to shut that down. So yeah, in terms of Winnipeg, or Saskatchewan. Like Saskatchewan's obviously they're trying to play for Grey Cup home playoff and trying to be the first team to ever do two at home, like all that other stuff. Is that going to happen? Is that reality? Probably not. But
Wouldn't you say that the two best coaching jobs that are out there today, if you're an experienced head coach and you have the opportunity to go to any two franchises, wouldn't it be Winnipeg and Saskatchewan
no,
because of the home draw, the home field
you're not.
advantage?
You're not going to get into Saskatchewan with Corey Mace there. I at all. Um, a lot of players slash a lot of coaches don't want to come here because they know You lose, it's your fault. Like, you're as good as it can be is as bad as it can be in Saskatchewan. Some players and some, like in the past, there's been players that we've offered players the whole entire job. They've been like, no, I'm not going there, because if you lose one game, you're hearing about it. You see them in the grocery store. Well, what happened? Why did you lose? What happened? When are you guys turning this thing around? So it's, in some cases, it's better for a player to go to somewhere where they're not gonna be as noticed, or they're not gonna be as popular or anything like that, because at least they can lose a game and people are like, yeah, well, whatever.
Well,
The
they can
thing-
have a life.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about here in Portland, we're a one-horse town with the Trailblazers, and the Blazers are in a bubble. They can't do anything in this town, and people don't know what's happening with them.
There was actually
Okay.
There was
I'm not- I'm-
actually an exhibition that comes through Saskatchewan every August from rides and all that other stuff. Cody Fajardo, when he was here in 2019, had talked about one of his favorite foods being corn dogs. They were actually going to build, like Regina was, a Cody Fajardo statue with him holding a corn dog to put by the station to sell more. That is how superstar status you get very quickly.
Okay. And Michael, also, Scott will confirm this. It was back a few years ago, quite a few years ago, gentleman by the name of Paul McCallum shanked a field goal from the 18-yard line in a
16.
playoff game. 16-yard line. Sorry, I
Yeah.
stand corrected. And somebody dumped a load of manure in his driveway.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
And he never played another game with the team.
Yeah, he did. He came back.
Did he come back the next year? Because I know he went
No,
to
no,
BC
no. He
right
didn't.
away.
He didn't come back till near the end of his career for, I think it was like a season.
Yeah,
He,
but aren't you happy though that Brett Lauther is going to continue his play in the CFL? He announced
No, he's
that
not.
this week. That's what he said.
Well,
Oh,
who's gonna
you
hire
can
him?
want to. I would love to be a quarterback in the CFL. I will never be one.
I wouldn't pick him up.
But
There's no way.
Brett Lauther's also older, and he's lost his confidence, and he's lost his leg. That's once
Well,
you
now,
lose, like, you need strong people behind. Like, look at Vern Adams. He came out flat out and said, I lost my confidence. He's got the people and the coaches and the players behind him to help that out. And he's also young enough in his career where he can do that. Brett Lauther, I think he's like 35 or 36. He's done.
well, we've now got our technical problems behind us, and so, Professor, the show is yours to
Don't bet on it.
lead.
I don't know what the fuck happened. It just started beeping at me really loud, so I turned it off.
Well, we tried to keep it going for you, so
But
now
I appreciate that.
We did our thing. But yeah, I think right now one of the, and I think it's on the agenda here too, about the whole Vernon Adams thing, is can he actually take that next step and go to that next level and remain healthy through the whole season and be, because I think one of the things that is great with him, he's one of the best deep passers I've ever watched. But he also, and when you do that, you're gonna throw interceptions. It's gonna happen. He needs to learn how to let those go. You're gonna throw interceptions when you throw deep. It's gonna happen. He's out there, but let it go.
I fully admit that I'm a Bo Levi Mitchell fan. Watching him last year was wonderful. I really enjoyed watching him play. And as you guys know, I'm new to the league. I couldn't understand why Calgary would get rid of him. Now,
Out for a second, Michael. Okay. And the reason for that is he was injured. Okay. And he spent 3 seasons with a shoulder that he couldn't throw 10 yards with. Okay. And he never got good. He never got better. It would just it looked like that was the end of him. And so they put him out to pasture. He says, I'm not done. And he kept rehabbing and rehabbing and rehabbing. And he ended up down at Hamilton, in which he's actually playing some good football. Now, I am not a Bo Levi Mitchell fan. Okay. I never have been. I don't think he was that good of a quarterback. He was on an amazing team with an amazing O line, with amazing receivers, and he sat back there and he threw the ball. He didn't run, he didn't scramble, he didn't do anything. He didn't need to. He could have sat in the backfield with a lawn chair and a cooler full of beer and thrown the football. Okay, so there was nothing that said that he was an amazing quarterback. All it was he was on an amazing team that made him look better than he was, because he absolutely did not perform the way that a top echelon quarterback could or should. Now, that being said, Calgary did nothing but win. Okay. So you can't fault a quarterback for winning. Okay. You cannot. But I always was reluctant to say that this was an elite quarterback, because he did nothing to prove that he was an elite quarterback. Now, since he's gone to Hamilton, he has turned into a respectable quarterback. In fact, I'm amazed that he can actually do what he's doing, because he never did it in Calgary.
But didn't he
never
win?
did.
But didn't he win a Grey
learn.
Cup? Did he win a Grey Cup in Calgary?
The team did.
Well, didn't he
And
participate in that?
here's the thing. The schemes that were drawn up by Dave Dickinson in Calgary for Bo, the schemes were drawn up that it doesn't matter who is. If I don't care who you are in the CFL, any quarterback can throw to a wide open receiver. Bo's he was a timing quarterback. He knew where those guys needed to be, where they were supposed to be, and he threw that immediately. And when you're a timing quarterback, those things matter big time. When he went to Hamilton, he tried being quarterback that he was in Calgary, and it didn't work out for him. He got slaughtered when he wasn't used to being hit.
Was that why he got benched for Powell?
No, he got benched because the what was the coach there? He told him not to do something. He did it, and he said, "If you do this, you're being benched." So he tried it, and boom, out. And then the only reason he came back in was because of Taylor Powell's injury.
You got to respect the court. You got to respect the head coach for doing that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He doesn't care who you are. If you don't do what you're asked to do, sit. And that's what a lot of coaches need to learn how to do. But the other part about Bo, like I said, is Scott Milanovich taught him, and CJ kind of referenced this. Now, I do believe he's a better quarterback in the past than CJ does. However, CJ brings up a lot of good points that he didn't have to do a lot of these things, which I agree with. But he was taught by Scott Milanovich in Hamilton how to be a quarterback, how to scramble, because those years that Calgary dominated the 2016 to 2018, that kind of era, or even earlier than that.
He ran the ball.
I think Bo came in around 2012. I think he came in and he did nothing but did all these amazing things. When Calgary saw him injured and they had Jake Maier came in and did a really good job in his first year. However, there was no film on Jake Maier. No one knew how to defend against him. All they knew how to defend against Bo. So teams scrambled trying to figure out how to do Jake Maier, who was a lot different of a quarterback than Bo Levi what it was. So yeah, in his first year, he succeeded very well because no one knew any better. They didn't know how to defend him. Once they realized this is his tendencies, this is his weaknesses, this is how you exploit him. Now you see Jake Maier going team to team to team because he isn't improving as a quarterback the way he needs to be. Bo, later in his career, is.
I think that Bo Levi Mitchell, he's got command. He's got command of the offense in
100%.
Hamilton. I think
100%.
that the players believe in him. When he's leading the huddle, they believe in him. What
Yeah.
what hurt Hamilton last year to me uh, was they didn't have a running game to support him. They were one dimensional, and if you could stop the big three on the wide receivers, you were going to beat Hamilton. Hamilton, from a talent standpoint, I thought was better than Montreal.
The problem is with the whole like the running back situation there, and I agree with you for a large part of that, is when you're defending Hamilton, it is very difficult to tame the arm slash the receivers that he had. Like they did run not very hardcore efficiently. I also don't know that they needed to run efficiently. They just needed to be able to make the offenses or defenses understand we may not get much, but we will run. Because as soon as, but Bowley, for instance, he's not going to do a whole lot of uh, play action or like things where he's going to potentially run the ball or give it to his running back. So
If you're
he's
gonna if you're
limited.
gonna if you're gonna win a Grey Cup, Scott, you got to have a running game. I mean, take a look at your team. You had
Yeah,
both. You had both.
it's you have to have a running game, but it's how you run the football, right? It doesn't have to be by handoffs but they do need to be able to run the football. And I do believe strongly that they're going to rectify that because yeah, did they sign anybody? Not necessarily, but again, running backs are not hard to find.
I'm learning that running backs are a
At one
dime a
point in time,
dozen.
they were a little harder, but nowadays they're not significant. And you don't need a running back that's going to throw up 1,000 to 1,500 yards a season. You just need somebody who's able to run the football that the defense has to respect. If you run the football 20 times in a game, you have to respect the run.
Yeah, but if you're going back to Winnipeg and O'Shea, he did not use Oliveira last year.
No,
He did not.
no.
Okay.
Last 3 years, in a sense, because as soon as they got to the playoffs, they stopped using them,
Is that the
and
head?
that's
See,
well, and right now, in my opinion, it's the head coach because you're now on your third OC in the last so many years, and the same things over and over again are happening. At what point in time do you point fingers at OC and say, "Why are you not making
well,
your
we haven't
Canadian?"
seen the third OC yet.
No, we haven't. But out of those two of them have. See, I thought Buck Pierce did a good job in Winnipeg. They shit the bed when they got to the playoffs, but is that more of an OC thing, or is that more of the players are getting older and they're not able to quite do it near the end of the season as much as they were during the season?
I think with Winnipeg it was mainly age. I think Pierce he's a pretty good coach.
I
He's
think
got
he's done a good job in BC.
I think if anybody's got the toughest job in the Canadian Football League, it's him. Because that team Vancouver is expected to dominate this year.
Well, you expect them to dominate.
Oh, come on. So do you.
You know, Mike,
I'm
I'm
cautiously optimistic.
yeah. If you've watched football for a while, yeah. The problem is that when you're BC, Saskatchewan, Calgary, it doesn't much matter. When on paper you're expected to win,
You never
there's
do.
only there's only one way you can go, and that's down.
I have this vision next of in November of Charles and Chris, CJ being in Calgary having a party.
Oh, I'd
It's
love to see it, my
celebrating.
friend. I'd love to see it.
I'm also
Um,
expecting for
so
someone to be in
I,
there to go party with.
I
Or
do have
So,
a
Charles.
question for you. Okay,
yep.
since we were talking about O'Shea, are we going to fall back into? Hello, Charles. Welcome to the show,
Hi.
buddy.
Thank you.
Are we going to go back to O'Shea here for a second? And when the team was prime, when they were ripe, then they were amazing. Then they were couldn't do anything wrong, and they were winning. But now that they're not in their prime, and everything is just happening, is this the coach's fault? Is O'Shea not as good a coach as what everybody thinks that he is?
No, it's
Because his team literally is not doing well now that he doesn't have a prime quarterback or prime team that's going on. Is he not able to get the best out of his team? We'll find that out this year, won't we?
I think it comes down to the general manager. You know, we know that this is an aging roster. They're banking on the fact that Collaros is not going to get hurt. They did pick up some good quality people in the free agent period. But even the guy that they picked up on defense, Serena, who played for my team, he was injured a lot last year. A lot of knee problems.
I think with Winnipeg, and I will give Zach Collaros all types of props for what he did when he went to Winnipeg, because I mean that was just a masterpiece watching it. As a Rider fan, it sucked watching it, but it was a masterpiece to watch it. But if they had a capable younger quarterback in that team right now, that team could go for another, because then you can at least do piece by piece. But the quarterback is a huge piece, and with all these new receivers, Collaros has to get used to how they run. He's used to his guys that this is how they run their route. This is where they're going to be. This is where the ball needs to be. Now he needs to get all that back with these new guys, and he's not the cream of the crop right now anymore. Like, can he still do it? Absolutely, but he needs the time. And I don't know that old line is. They got Broxton in there, which is he's going to do his thing, but he can't protect all of them.
Can Collaros stay at the top of his game still for an entire season?
No.
I don't know.
Kind of important,
I don't think
you
so
think?
at this. I don't think so at this point.
Even if he doesn't get hit, he's going to get the footsteps in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of quarterbacks, when they get a lot of pressure, they start to hear the footsteps, even if they aren't there.
Yeah.
Well, probably more so for him because of his concussion problem. But like you guys yelled at me last year, I kept saying
I don't think so.
He was one concussion away from being out of the league, but he kept coming back. He kept coming back.
Everyone is one concussion away.
I would tell you that Zach Collaros is not worried about being concussed again. If he was, he should not be playing. Okay? So I think he has completely put anything like that out of his mind to be able to play at the top of his game. He cannot be worried about footsteps. And as the professional that he has been for so long, I do not believe that is a concern for him. Is it a concern for Michael? Yes. I think that if Zach gets hit a few times, then he might start listening to the footsteps. But until that happens, I don't think he's concerned in the slightest.
Oh no, footsteps won't happen until he gets hit a few times, but he's going to get hit.
Yeah, but Mike O'Shea's got to be scared to death because he does not have a backup quarterback in Winnipeg.
And how many teams do?
So does BC. Edmonton might have one. Saskatchewan, Montreal, Ottawa. Like, no one does.
I think you could make the case that Montreal has one, and so does Toronto.
I don't think so.
If
Toronto maybe.
If Arbuckle comes back.
I'd say Toronto does, Hamilton does, Edmonton does.
Who's Montreal's backup?
Dustin Crum.
Came out of Ottawa. Dustin Crum.
Yeah. He's not bad. He can be okay. I don't think he's the greatest. I don't think he can he can manage a game, I think.
He's
I don't
serviceable.
think
That's
he's
the whole
taking
thing.
it.
If Drew Brown goes down, Dustin, or if Davis Alexander goes down, Dustin Crum can step up, okay,
He can
and
keep
play
their
a
head above
respectable
water.
game of football. Is he the Kevin Glenn, current Kevin Glenn, where you expect a 500 football team? Is that all
Here's
you
the
want
thing.
from your backup?
It's hard to say all these guys that are Dustin Crum, Drew Brown, all these guys are in or came from Ottawa. It's really hard to decipher what they can or cannot actually do, knowing the coaching staff they came from.
Now, this topic is kind of CJ's favorite, that we're not growing quarterbacks in our league.
No,
Don't you
Not a
think
favorite
not?
subject of mine. It's a terrible subject of mine, but it is my subject.
don't you think it's time for the CFL to get rid of the salary cap and become a major league football league, or at least
No.
invest?
who's paying
No?
those salaries?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, my God, the salary cap is so damn low.
The problem
Michael,
is
TSN
you
only
do
pays so
that.
much.
Yeah.
Hang on. If you're going to do that, and I don't disagree with you that for the CFL to grow respectively, it needs to ditch the salary cap or at least grossly increase it. But before that happens, we have to grow the game. We need to get more revenue. To do that, we need to get rid of the ratio and we need to put a fucking team in America. Okay? Until that happens, you cannot raise the salary cap and bankrupt certain franchises.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can raise the salary cap to $10 million a year. Are you going to lose Toronto? Are you going to lose
No,
Edmonton? Are you
no.
going to lose? You don't think so? I'll
They're
guarantee
owned
it.
by a billionaire. Both are owned by billionaires.
They don't like
MLSE
losing that much money.
is not dropping money into the bank. Okay. Oh, you'll lose Ottawa for sure. I'll guarantee that.
Yeah, I can see that.
The league would go down.
The league would go down. We cannot raise the salary cap more than what we have agreed to, which is really only about $50,000 a year, except for this year because of the revenue sharing. No, we're not. We cannot raise the salary cap at this point in time. Not until we grossly increase the revenues. And the only way we're going to grossly increase the revenues is to bring in more sponsorship money, more broadcast money out of the U.S. Because TSN has shown time and time again that they don't give a shit about the CFL in Canada, and it's the only Sportsnet cares less.
Yeah,
that is
And this kind of goes back to the
never
rule
given a
changes.
damn.
Is how are these rule changes gonna do anything positive for the league? It's not.
I think that the league is the most. If you take a look at the two leagues, the CFL is much more exciting than the NFL. For me, I like what the CFL brings. I love the fact that they're in markets like Regina, that they're in the smaller markets, and that I love that. This is a unique league, and it just blows me away that the management of this league has mismanaged it, that they haven't grown this sport over the last decades. And to operate with where you have the women's basketball league making now more money than the CFL is.
No. I'm not going to accept that analogy at all. No fucking way. If you were talking about a women's basketball league in Canada, I would give you full credit for that. But when you're talking about something in America with 350 million people, Canada with 40 million, you're not comparing apples and oranges here, buddy. You're doing peanuts
not to mention the fact that the WNBA is backed up by the NBA, a multi-billion-dollar company.
Which sport would you rather watch, Charles?
That's irrelevant because, first of all, I'd rather watch football. That means nothing because it's a U.S. thing. U.S. thing, basketball is very popular, men and women's in the U.S. So it's a different thing altogether. That's got nothing to do with preference. It's got everything to do with the money backed up.
So
and
here's my
the size of the market.
here's my question to you, and you're going to be educating me. There had to be a pivot point at some point. The CFL had a decision to make. Why haven't they grown this sport? I think it's a beautiful league.
It,
I'll tell you. I'll give you my opinion, and I can sum it up in 2 words. David Braley.
I don't know who he is.
yeah.
David Braley was the one-time owner of the BC Lions. He saved the team back in 2002, 2003, something like that.
And
A billionaire, $6 billion or something like this, and he treated the league like it was his.
Yeah,
and
it was great.
His way or the highway. And he did nothing to market the BC Lions when he owned them. He did nothing to market the Toronto Argonauts when he owned them, because he owned both teams at the same time, because Toronto went bankrupt and David Braley took ownership of them. At one time, he was the owner of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Okay, so he lost it in a divorce. Anyhow, he had no desire to. This basically was a play toy for him, and he just wanted everybody to look up to him as he is the all be all end all. He's the grandpa of the CFL, and he dumped millions and millions and millions of dollars into our league. Every team in the CFL benefited from his purse. So I can't say anything bad about him, except for the fact he had zero fucking vision, and anybody that opposed him was thrown out on their ear.
because he was also at one time the acting commissioner of the CFL as well.
Oh my God. You're kidding.
Okay.
No, I am not.
So if you disagreed with David Braley, you are no longer part of this league.
I give him full kudos for
100%.
saving 2 franchises, really 3 because he had Hamilton.
9.
Yeah, 9. But there was good side to David Braley and a bad side to David Braley. The other question I'm going to ask, because Mike actually asked a very interesting question about having to grow the game. Mike, have you done any research into the 90s CFL expansion into the U.S.?
No, I have not.
Okay, you got to look into that, because technically that was them trying to grow the game. The problem with the U.S. expansion is it was done so half-assed. They literally gave a team to anyone willing to write them a check. They did no background. They went to cities they shouldn't have gone to. They had one city that did it right, which was Baltimore. Everybody else, there's actually, if you go on, there's some actual good YouTube documentaries about the CFL in the USA, US CFL expansion. Go on and read those. And there's also a good book that was done by, there's one of the Canadian sports writers about the US expansion into Canada. I would advise to read that book, because the CFL actually did try to expand their horizons. The people who were in charge of it at that time were the wrong people, Larry Smith for one, and they didn't do it properly. And that's why when you bring up expansion in any of the Facebook groups to any of these people, they say, well, we've done it before, they tried that, it didn't work. Yeah, they tried it and it didn't work, but they didn't do it properly in the beginning. They didn't do any due diligence. Someone would come up to you, here's a check, can I have my team now? And they would give it to them.
In my professional life, I've had the opportunity to finance professional sports here locally. And the thing about it is that the people that were involved, they were deep-pocketed people. They were thoroughly vetted. That if the organization were to fail, the league would come in and it was going to financially be okay. You cannot expand any league without doing due diligence on the ownership group in that city. They've got to have a plan.
They didn't.
Michael, you cannot expand a league with 6 teams overnight.
No,
No.
Okay.
No.
You cannot expand a team with 6 teams that don't follow the same rules as the other 9 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
that's what I don't understand. Why would you, from a labor standpoint, why would you give the American teams an advantage over the Canadian teams? Because
Michael,
the ratio
if
rule.
if they did not expand into the US in the 90s, the league was going to fold.
It would not exist right now.
No.
Okay. The league was bankrupt. They were going to fold. They were desperate. There were desperate times, and they did whatever they could to save the league. And that was going into the US with no regard at all for the quality of the facility, the quality of the players, the quality of the team, the quality of ownership. I mean, hell, they were having practices in a parking lot in a Las Vegas
In
casino.
Las Vegas. It was the real hotel, or not the real, it was the Riviera Hotel and Casino, where apparently the quote unquote headquarters of the Las Vegas posse was, which I think was a desk in the middle of the lobby. They were practicing in a parking lot. They put down a bunch of artificial turf on top of a parking lot. It was not CFL regulations. It was 70 yards long, because in Vegas in the summer it's 120 degrees. They would have to practice at 8:30 at night because it was too hot otherwise. And they didn't do any of it. They were in that old Sam Boyd Stadium, which was a dump back then, and I don't even know if it still exists. It was a horrible miscalculation.
Okay.
They went to Memphis and brought in Pepper Rogers, who had worked in the USFL. And every interview Pepper Rogers did, he took shots at the CFL.
If you take a look at the history, and I know I'm biased, Portland had a USFL team. We sold out every night.
Portland Breakers.
If we had a CFL team, I'm convinced that we would sell out every night here.
And you know what, Michael? I don't doubt it. But for that to happen, the CFLA has to be committed to doing this properly. Okay. And they have to make the league, there has to be equality. So we have to get rid of the ratio for all teams.
Yeah.
Okay. All teams.
You can't
so that
have
it
two
becomes
sets of
fair.
rules.
Baltimore took one season, okay, before they became a dominant force in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Their first year was a bit of a learning curve. The second year, they dominated. Okay. There was no ratio for them. So, and they had Don Matthews as a coach. I mean, they brought him in as a coach, general manager.
Which was smart.
So they brought in CFL quality coaches to run a team. Everybody else just grabbed college coaches from the US, had no idea what the rules were. The amount of penalties they got because they didn't know the rules was amazing. It was astronomical. It was hilarious.
It was like preseason during the regular season.
So would we agree as a group that the problem with the CFL right now today is revenue? We need to grow revenue, correct?
Well, no, I would say the problem with the CFL right now is ownership, management, and coordination and direction.
I would agree.
Why don't we get rid of the ratio rule yesterday? Why?
Well, because it's part of the CBA, which still has another 5 years.
No, it's only got one more year.
No, it doesn't.
No,
they signed for
it's to 2029, I think.
Yes.
They did?
Yes.
Yeah, they extended it for 7 years.
Yes, they did.
Shit.
And by the way,
that was right after COVID.
Yeah, the last time during negotiations, the CFL talked about, well, maybe not totally eliminating it, but reducing it a fair amount. The PA fought them tooth and nail, and they always will. That's going to be the problem.
December
31st.
Yeah, but it's
December 31st, 2029.
Yeah.
The owners have the leverage. The owners have the leverage on it and say, no, we're not going to have it, period. Do you guys want to
Michael,
leave?
I don't disagree with you. All I'm saying is this was a non-negotiable point in the last CBA. The player said absolutely not going to happen. There was some concessions to the ratio, but they were lip-dicked at best.
Agreed.
Looking at your situation, Charles, in BC, can you imagine how good your team could be without the ratio rule? Where you guys are right now?
Well, I mean, you could say you could say that about any team. I get what you're saying because most people seem to agree that BC is going to be the best team in the league, and without the ratio, they could be even better. And you're right, but I mean that's the same for any team. And by the way, you're preaching to the choir. I have no problem getting rid of the ratio. I've said we should do that, but it's not that simple.
I look at BC, and when I watch you guys on TV, I am shocked that you don't have your second deck full with 50,000 people. And if that meant to get rid of the ratio rule and you could fill that deck, I would get rid of that rule in a heartbeat.
I don't,
that's
Michael, I don't believe that is going to solve the attendance problems in BC.
It will not. BC, you got it. Actually, CJ can explain this better than I can because back in the 1980s, right after BC Place opened, almost until the early to mid 90s, it would be full. I was at a game in 1991 when Rocket Ishmael came up with the Argos, and they came to play here. We had 54,000 for a regular season game midweek Thursday night in August.
Yeah,
Toronto same way.
Yeah, Toronto the same way, but I think it's a shift in kind of demographics somewhat in Vancouver because Vancouver is a much more international city than it was back in the 80s. And you got a lot of immigrants coming over here from Europe and stuff like that, which I'm fine with, but they're not into U.S. football. They're more into soccer. That's why you've seen a rise of the Vancouver Whitecaps in recent years. Oh, that too. Yeah, but part of the problem is and we've talked about this before, nowadays, and it wasn't like this back in the 80s and 90s, but nowadays, if you want to go to a BC Lions game and you live out where I live, or even out Langley, which is 20 minutes, if you want to go to a BC Lions game at 7 o'clock, you've got to leave your house pretty much by 4:30 in the afternoon at the latest, or you will not make it there on time because of the ridiculous BC roadways. That keeps people away. It does.
And they can just watch it on TV.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can watch it on TV. The Lions TV numbers are excellent. But the problem is and CJ even talked about this, building the stadium somewhere else.
When you go to a Trailblazers game, how long are you away from your house?
I get there in 40 minutes.
Okay, so length of time of the game, travel time, how long do you hang out there, have coffee, beer with friends, whatever? What's the total amount of time?
3.5 hours.
Okay.
For me, it was 8. It was 8 hours for me to go to a BC Lions football game. 2 hours in, 2 hours out, 3 hours for the game, and an hour to hang out with Charles and the buddies and everybody else. Okay, so that's an 8-hour day after I've worked an 8-hour day. Yeah, and I don't get home till after midnight.
Especially when they had like Thursday games where everyone's still working and everyone works till at least 5 o'clock, a lot of people later. That's why I always argued we shouldn't have Thursday games in Vancouver. They're dead attendance wise. You're not going to get people there.
Well,
please give me a reason. Please give me a reason to go to the football game instead of watching it on TV.
I mean, people like me, I'm always going to go.
I'm going to go to the game because that's what I do, but that is not the majority of people.
The end game experience is far better than watching it on TV.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's been,
yes,
That's why I go.
but it's
But if you've
10
never been
times
to
the
it-
price.
if you've never been to a game, Mike, how do you know what you're missing?
I know that
Yeah.
in the sports that I go to here in my city, it's an event. You want to be there.
Well, the CFL games are not an event.
No.
It's like right now, and I know it's basketball, we have an opportunity to make the playoffs. That stadium is going to be rocking.
Well, I'm happy for you, but that's not what happens in the CFL.
But I
Yeah.
want that for you in BC this year. I really do.
Michael, so do I. I'm just not holding my breath.
And we could talk all day long about Edmonton. And when we get Chris Morris on this show, we'll talk about it. But Edmonton has made far more mistakes than BC in terms of turning away fans.
Lately,
But BC has their issues as well. I'll give you one name. I don't know if you recognize it or not. Nelson
Murray.
Scalbania.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Murray
Murray
Pesham's
Pezim.
another one. Oh man.
Okay. Bill Comrie.
You know what, CJ? We haven't even touched our agenda today.
I know.
Sometimes we don't.
We're just talking about you. We're making this show. We're making this an educational show for Michael again. And the sad thing is we're rehashing the same shit again because hey, I'll tell you what will make the BC Lions fill the stadium. Move the stadium.
Why don't they?
Who's gonna? They've got $1 billion stadium that was given to them. The rent for that thing is $250,000 a year.
However, you do have a
That's
lot of
25 grand a game.
you have a lot of money in BC to be able to put together a nice stadium.
Oh, the government's not going to do it.
Who's gonna pay for it? BC's the government not paying for it. It would have to be privately built, and I don't think that that Amar Doman, while he has a lot of money, I don't know if he has enough for an entire stadium.
His net worth's only 600
you
million.
gotta get the land. Yeah.
Now 600 million, no, he couldn't afford to do that.
No.
I mean, and you know, this is a hobby for him. This is not his business, right? It's not ever going to give him a profit. It's not.
But
Nobody
isn't
makes
that,
money. Nobody buys a CFL team to make money.
but isn't that true of most professional sports?
I don't know. I'd buy an NFL team. I'd make money.
Yeah.
Well, they're different.
NFL, I think most professional sports make money.
There's only 2 teams in the CFL that make money a year.
Yeah, we know who they are.
You can't say that. And really, I hate it when people do because they're speaking from ignorance. There are only 2 teams in the CFL that have to show their financial statements.
That is a true point. That is a true point.
Oh, there's 3.
Okay?
Yep.
No,
there's not. There's only 2.
You only have to if you're community owned.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Well, that's
So
not
Edmonton used
true
to.
either. If you're a public company, you have to put your financial statements out. So
if you're
MLSC would
publicly
have to have
traded,
their
yeah.
statements on the deck. And I don't know about Calgary. Is that a publicly traded company or is that a private conglomerate?
It's a private.
Because I know Ottawa is a private conglomerate.
I take a look
private,
at.
I believe.
I take a look at Calgary and I put them on the agenda. Don't you think that that the city of Calgary ought to do something to rebuild that stadium? To at least give them across the league, they have to have the worst stadium in the league, right?
Have for quite some
Edmonton's
time.
in close proximity. For being the wealthiest province in the CFL or in the country, Alberta sure has 2 shitty football stadiums. The answer to that, Michael, is really simple. Nobody cares about the CFL in Canada? Okay. So why does Hamilton have a brand new stadium?
Because
they hosted the Pan American Games. Why does BC have a brand new stadium? Because they hosted the Olympics.
The Olympics.
Okay. Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Winnipeg are the only two teams that actually built their stadiums for their football teams.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else got brand new stadiums because of something else happening. I think Ottawa was because of a rugby tournament or something, and there was a soccer tournament in Toronto, and that's why they built BMO Field. So every stadium that's out there, Montreal doesn't have a stadium right now. They're begging off the university team, and before that they had the stadium because of the Olympics. Okay, so there has to be an alternative reason to get a stadium built in this country. It can't be just for football because the people of this country don't give a shit about football. You've got hockey and you've got nothing else. Okay? So a close second, or not even a distant second from hockey right now, I would say is soccer. I think soccer is becoming more popular than the football. Okay?
They draw more people. They have better attendances in BC, Montreal, Vancouver.
So you got to really question why anybody or any government is going to dump money into a dying sport in a country that doesn't have the population to support it.
Look what happened when they put soccer into Commonwealth Stadium. They filled it up.
Yes, they did.
You take a look at that. Isn't that Stuart Johnson's job?
Well, he's doing a shitty job.
I agree with you there. But isn't it the job of the league to try to grow this thing? There is something here. Look at how many professional football leagues have failed here in America.
Michael, you're preaching to the choir.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Every one of us in here knows how to fix this league. Every one of us. Okay. I could be made commissioner tomorrow and I would save this league within 3 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. But there has to be support from the owners of the teams to do it. And up to this point in time, there has not been. We had one commissioner that was actually doing an amazing job in this league. He was doing all of the right things, and they fired him after a year and a half.
Why?
Because he wouldn't do what the league wanted. He wasn't listening to the owners. He was trying to grow the league. He was trying to do this. They didn't want him doing that. This was their toy, and they didn't want him to break it.
It's not a toy. This is an investment.
It's not an investment. It's a toy. An investment is something that has a yield, an ROI, and these things are words that you as a banker should understand.
Oh, I know. I understand it.
This league doesn't have an ROI.
It should.
It does not. Never has.
You take a look at the Major League Soccer. How much did Vancouver pay? I know the answer. Do you know how much Vancouver paid to get into MLS?
No, 40 I don't million. Care.
40 million. You know what it's worth today? Over $700 million. Do
you know what the BC Lions are worth today?
Probably 40.
Oh, 40 million.
And that's because
do you know where most of that money is?
No.
It's in the real estate of the practice facility.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be. God, I wish the five of us in this group could run this league.
I'm not good at working with committees.
I think even Charles and I could work together because we're passionate about this league.
Oh, I'm passionate about this league. I would just rule it with an iron fist. This is the way we're fucking doing, and we're going to go ahead and do it. Get out of my way.
You want to talk
And that's how I
about
run
a
my
commissioner
businesses.
that would get fired by the owners?
I'm a dictator, and I run every one of my businesses that way. I don't ask my employees to help me with my business. I ask for suggestions, and if I don't like them, I don't follow them.
It was quite an interesting conversation in my research of the Edmonton team. And I'm not talking for Jardo, but it was even the staff that sold the tickets. It was so bad when Chris Morris and that group took over the franchise that they had to get rid of their employees because there was no morale within the organization. They didn't give a shit.
Yeah,
I
we know.
I can't imagine working. I can't imagine owning a team and not caring.
And what is bizarre?
Go ahead, Charles.
I was gonna say, and what is bizarre? Edmonton used to be the gold standard franchise. They were
Yes.
top level franchise right into actually I would say the early 2000s. They were still a model franchise, and then it's really only been the last decade where that franchise has started to just not just go downhill but free fall.
I've got people that talk to me in the blog that hate me because I root for Edmonton, and they live in Edmonton. There are
Why do they
some
hate you?
they think that they're rooting for Edmonton to go down to get to fold.
So prior to 2010,
Those people are idiots.
Yeah.
okay, prior to 2010, David Braley, in an interview, was asked what CFL teams he had supported with money over the years. And David Braley had said that he had dumped millions and millions of dollars into this league. And he said he had supported and bailed out every single team in the CFL except Edmonton, because Edmonton has always been extremely well managed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Those were his words.
So what happened?
And within 2 years, he lent them $4 million. Okay. So every team in the CFL took David Braley's money. So my point being here is that these teams, even when they were doing amazingly well, are not making money.
They should.
So they need to be a rich man's toy so that he makes his money somewhere else and he spends little bits on this football team. And that's the way that this league has always been. Always. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's the way I want it to be. It's not the way I expect it to be. It's not successful. It's just reality.
So I would say that if you take a look at the rule changes that were made last summer,
It's going to kill the league.
Either that or it's going to save the league because they're going to be going into American stadiums.
I don't think you need to change the rules to go into American stadiums.
The first rule you need to change to go into the States is the one rule they're not touching, which is the ratio.
Who's the ratio? If you're going to go into American cities, you need to change the ratio. I don't care about anything else.
Doesn't matter where the posts are or what the clock looks like or anything like that.
Well, the fields matter because our stadiums are built for 100 yards.
Not all of them.
Most of them.
And see, and that's the thing. Shrinking the length of the field a little bit, not a big deal. Doesn't mean you have to put.
Frankly, I could live with all the rule changes, or leave it alone, because I like the uniqueness of the Canadian game.
The biggest rule change for me that I hate, absolutely hate, is moving the goalposts. That's the one that's killing the game.
The most unnecessary to me.
Okay. Now, if you, I really honestly have no issues with shortening the field to 100 yards. Okay. I listen. The uniqueness of the Canadian game being 110 yards is cool, but it's not going to affect the game to shorten it to 100 yards. No. By shortening it to 100 yards, they lose the excuse for shortening the end zones.
Yeah.
Because we've just shortened the field, so now the end zones can be still 20 yards, but they're 5 yards closer. Okay, so the rounding of the corners in Montreal and the 3 yards shorter in Toronto is now moot. Okay, so we still have the full depth of a 20-yard end zone by shortening the field by 100 yards. That's why it's the least offensive rule to me. If you shorten the field to 100 yards, keep our end zones full size 20 yards, leave the goalposts where they are, where they're supposed to be, out the front.
And you got to keep the 65
clock is ridiculous.
Yards. The clock needs to stay the same. You're asking these receivers with 5 seconds less to run downfield, potentially incomplete pass, and they have to run all the way back and do everything all over again. They got 5 seconds less to do it.
And that's not, you're right, Scott. I'm not going to argue with you on that. You're 100% right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But my point being is, if you're trying to make this look like they changed the clock, the starting of the clock, they need to make it at least the 40 seconds that the NFL has already. By shortening that, you're doing exactly the problem that what you're doing. But that being said, they've already admitted that changing the clock is a stupid idea, because they've gone to the exemption within the 3 minutes before the end of the half and the game. So they've already said that this rule change is stupid. So we're not going to do it in the last 3 minutes of the game.
Right.
Because we don't want to ruin the game. We don't want to ruin the last 3 minutes of the game.
And with moving the field goal post, there's going to be a lot of reduced field goals, because you can't kick the 45-yard field goal, 35-yard line or whatever it is. So you're going to have to get much closer.
So, in all honesty, the rule change that everybody said they didn't have a problem with is the one that I probably do have a problem with, and that's putting the teams on opposite sides of the stadium. Now, everybody's going to look at me here and say, what the fuck are you talking about? But we have a larger width field, which is 65 yards, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The NFL field is 57 yards. If we kept both teams on one side of the field, it takes less room, so you can put it into a smaller American stadium. But by forcing the teams on both sides of the stadium, then you've now got little ribbons on each side for the teams to be on. So that is one rule change that I really have to question. It's the best thing for the CFL in Canada. But if we didn't do that in America, we would be able to fit into those smaller postage stamp stadiums.
Well, I know
myself, I despise the teams on the same side.
And so do I, Charles.
Hated it.
Of course. 100%. And so do the coaches, because they like to be able to walk up and down the sideline from one end to the other. You don't want to walk half to half half field to midfield. So I don't know. We could go over every rule change. Will's not here, but it's just one of those things. I cannot see how any of these rule changes benefit the game for the fan.
No.
And
I think
have said this over and over and over again. There's no loyalty in football. Players will go to any team, they will be gone. Very few players will be on your team in 5 years. Odds are your coaches won't be there or your managers. Your president's going to be gone in X amount of years. Hell, the owners are going to be gone. Owners die, they move on, they sell, they go bankrupt, they retire, they do whatever they want. The only constant in the CFL is the fans. And I've been a fan of this league for 55 years.
Yeah, but don't you think that this league would benefit with players staying in the same community for a longer period of time than 2 years or 3 years? Why can't you why can't you put together a collective bargaining agreement with a salary cap to incentivize players to stay in their market?
The biggest problem with every professional sports league in North America is free agency.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay? The creation of free agency has destroyed every league. Not to the point that the CFL hurts by it, but we have actually got 1-year contracts in our collective agreement. 1 year.
I don't mind if there's 1-year contracts. However, there should be that if you sign with the team, that team should have at least 4 years of your rights.
You're not going to get any arguments from me.
And I think
that's it's not the way it is.
Yeah, but don't you think that that's what's wrong with the league? How do you think Montreal felt? What do you think Montreal felt when they lost Stamkey?
Next man up.
Yep.
Who was there before Sankey?
They
survived before, they'll survive
after. Yeah, but I would have been depressed.
I mean, I wouldn't say they lost him. They wouldn't pay what he wanted, so they let him go because obviously there was somebody else, BC, who would pay what he wanted. So Montreal had the opportunity to sign him for that. They didn't want to, so they let him go.
He did not become a free agent. He was released.
Yeah, I know that.
He signed to the BC Lions before free agency started.
He did, yes.
Every team has their needs, whether it's defense, offense, whether it's linebackers, or whatever the case is. You have to let go of what you don't need, but you have to take in what you do need.
But here's the problem with the way the free agency system is set up. The best player in the league right now is probably Nathan Rourke. No team in the league is going to give him $1 million contract if he hits the free agent market the way the salary cap is set up. Oh yeah, we could give him the $1 million contract, but you're not going to be able to field the team around him.
We know that. We've seen Mike Riley and we've seen Bo Levi Mitchell sign contracts for $750,000, and we've seen them roll their contracts back because the team couldn't be built around them. Actually, Mike Riley never did, and he paid the price.
Yeah. That's why he was constantly on his back that one season, because they couldn't pay an offensive line.
So if there's no answers, there's no true answers.
Yeah, but there are answers. It's just that the owners aren't willing to pay for it.
Well, a lot of the owners can't pay for it. They don't have unlimited pockets. Ottawa has no money. Okay. that team was bought by four men. They built a conglomerate together, the Ottawa sports and entertainment business, and they brought in a football team. Good for them. They did something in Ottawa that needed to happen. I'm happy for that. I'm proud of them. I'm grateful to them. Everything else, but they've done nothing but lose money. And if you're not a multi-billionaire, you can't afford to lose $10 million a year. I'll tell you, Amar Doman is not going to continue down the path that he is because he's not going to be able to afford the losses if he keeps going. Now, I don't think the BC Lions are losing money. I just think Amar Doman is spending more than he needs to with these concerts. Okay? Those are on him. That's got nothing to do with the team. He's doing that himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? I'm grateful that he owns the team. He's the best owner we've had in a lot of years. Early days of David Braley were wonderful. He came in and he built a championship team. He brought in Bob Ackles. He brought in Wally Buono. He brought in the best players that we possibly could. We had great quarterbacks. We had great receivers. We had great Rob Murphy and Jason Jimenez as O-linemen. He built an amazing team in the early 2000s. And then he got tired of spending money.
Yep.
And then the team floundered, and it floundered around for a decade.
So you're telling me that in the CFL that if you've got a winning franchise, a consistently winning franchise, the cities are not going to support it because they don't care.
That's correct. That's correct.
Well,
depends on the
I
city.
kind of disagree because you do see teams when the Lions were winning consistently in the early 2000s.
We had good crowds.
We had good crowds. They averaged around 30,000. And even in last year, the Lions' attendance has risen the last 2 years.
Yes.
Not to the point where it should be, Charles, but it has gone up. But you're not going to get the consistent 50,000 anymore. What's that?
Toronto Argonauts win the Grey Cup. The next year, their season ticket base is lower.
Went down, yeah.
It went down.
The Toronto...
You win a championship in a town, in a sports town, where the hockey team hasn't won since 1967. Okay? Since 1967, they haven't won a championship. Yet their stadium, their arena is full. Okay?
Well, there's absolutely...
They have basketball, they have baseball, they have soccer, they have lacrosse, they have football. And I'll tell you right now, out of the 6 teams, I bet you football ranks 5th.
I would say they probably rank 6th.
In Toronto,
I don't think they're as popular as the lacrosse.
Toronto doesn't have to worry about the Argos because they have the Buffalo Bills that they support.
Why would they support the Buffalo Bills?
No, they don't, though. Remember the last time that the Buffalo Bills held the Toronto series? They had nothing but problems giving. They were giving tickets away. They weren't selling.
Well, it was the same in Vancouver when the 49ers came up.
They did that once, and that didn't sell either. So was I.
No, there wasn't 10,000 people in the stadium. It was a joke.
Well, I fully admit that last year when I saw Toronto averaging 14,000 people a game, and they're the defending champions in the league, on their opening night, the stadium was empty.
Yep.
It was depressing.
14,000 people is generous.
It was depressing.
Yes, extremely.
I think that includes the tickets that they give away and everything else. So,
and that's why I look at it and I'm comparing it to my market. If we had a championship team like that, it would be sold out on opening night. It would be sold out on opening night. You would be celebrating just like Regina did for their championship.
Well, you would hope so. All I'm telling you, Michael, is it's not the reality of the CFL right now. So the only way that we're going to save the CFL right now,
especially in Toronto,
is to get rid of the ratio, put a team in Portland, and watch it sell out, and get a television deal with ESPN or somebody that's going to dump $200 million into the league, and we can raise our salary caps, and we can bring in some good American players, and we can create a phenomenal product on the field, and then, and only then, the fans may start to come back. I don't know what else to say. It's not going to happen unless that does.
And that's probably why you shouldn't listen to our podcast tonight, because it's a Debbie Downer for me. It's depressing.
I'm a fan, Michael.
Well,
But
so am I.
I'm not delusional. I can admit I'm going to watch the CFL until there is no longer a CFL. I will watch the CFL for the rest of my life if the league exists. Okay? If I'm the only one in the stadium, I will be at the games.
I'm quite convinced. I'm quite convinced the CFL is going to continue. You've lasted over 100 years.
Oh yeah.
I honestly, if you look at the amount of people that are pissed off at these rule changes, and I know there's a lot of people who think the rule changes are irrelevant, but I know personally 10 people who have said they're no longer participating in the season tickets because of the rule changes. That's only 10, yes, but that's only me.
The Riders lost a bunch.
The Riders lost a bunch. Every team is going to lose fans. And you got to realize, if you go to the CFL games, there's not a lot of kids. There's not a lot of people in their 20s. There's not a lot of people in their 30s. Okay? There's a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who are going to get older, who are going to lose their health. They're going to retire. They're not going to have the disposable income. They're not going to have, we're losing our fan base out the top end. We're not bringing enough in the bottom.
Oh, I would say that when I looked at the stands in Winnipeg, there were quite a bit of young kids there.
You're talking about Winnipeg and you're talking about Saskatchewan. These are fans who are born fans. Okay?
Yeah.
Those fan bases are multi-generational. Okay?
You got to leave those two out.
Charles is the exception of everybody that I know in Vancouver, because he brought up a CFL fan. His child is a CFL fan. Mm-hmm. My kid couldn't give a shit. I tried. I took him to games. He couldn't care less. So, you know, I don't know what it is, but you're born a Rider fan.
As soon as you pop out, they throw a onesie on you.
Yeah.
They have green baby wear. They have green wedding dresses. They have green underwear. Okay,
people
those guys
watermelons.
Eat, breathe. I know people
puts on wedding shows.
I've been told that 60% of a person's wardrobe is Rider gear.
At least.
Okay. I've never seen him without Rider gear on.
I thought the biggest thing in Regina were the Regina Pats.
No. Well,
they're junior hockey.
They're making the playoffs this
year.
They're
big. I mean, yeah,
they're not big, but they're. I mean, you have the Riders. That's the WHL is the next best thing after the CFL. So
well, yeah, because when the CFL is not playing, you got to watch something.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you curl it.
But if you go to a Pats game, that building's half empty.
Mm-hmm.
At least half empty.
And you got to realize what's the capacity? 15,000?
About there, yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about there's 8,000 people in the arena. Okay.
Yeah, and that's
go to a Rider game hockey. And there's 30,000.
Yeah.
Well, we average around 8,000 for WHL hockey here.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're right in the ballpark with the Pats.
And they invested $50 million to renovate the arena for them.
Do they still play at the Rose Garden?
No, they play at the Memorial
I
Coliseum.
didn't think so. Yeah, I thought they used to, but I think they must have moved from there.
Okay, guys, we're on an hour and a half on this show, and we've done fuck all. But that being said, we did talk about football.
We entertained a couple people.
I tried.
Maybe we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna end the show, and we're gonna go away, and we'll come back and do it again next week.
And well,
Hopefully,
we can keep the agenda we had for tonight because we didn't really get to it, but we can do it next week.
And hopefully by then we can add some shit to it too, or maybe we're gonna have Chris Morris or somebody else, or I can call Paul McCallum out, but he wants to talk about the rule changes.
Well, we know Will won't be on that show.
Will won't be around. A, he's a kicker, and B, he doesn't want to talk about the rule changes.
Will talking about the rule changes with a kicker.
I know. Okay.
We love you, Will.
This has been Let's Talk CFL podcast episode number 641. I've been your host, Christopher Jones. You guys take care. Enjoy yourselves. Have a pleasant evening, and we will talk to you next Tuesday. We're now doing our shows on Tuesday nights.
So are we now Tuesday from now on?
Freezing.
Okay,
we're going to do Tuesdays from now on. It's better for Mike coming June, and it's better for me right now. So we're going to do it. And if we can't make a Tuesday night, we can do a Wednesday night, and we're not going to miss a Thursday night football game.
Right.
Okay. So that's me saying good night, Charles.
Good night, folks. Thanks for listening. Every week that goes by is 1 week closer to football. We're into April next week, so training camp will be the following month. So we're getting closer.
Yeah, Michael.
Well, I hope everybody has a great week, and we're 1 week closer to seeing Cody Fajardo lead our Edmonton Elks to the next championship.
There's no we in there. There's no our in there. That's you.
Couldn't let one show go by.
You can use the word my and me, okay? Yeah. The rest of us don't give a shit about that guy.
Mike, did Cody Fajardo name his son Cody?
Pardon me?
Everyone, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Actually, it was kind of funny, okay? I was talking to somebody today, and she said, there was a name that wasn't very popular a while back, and it reminds me of a dog. And you know what that name is? And I said, what? And she goes, Cody. And I just couldn't stop laughing. And she didn't know why I was laughing, but it's a dog's name. It's not a person's name, okay? So anyhow, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm turning off the recording. Stop. Okay.